Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be going over some severe storms in the central and eastern United States over the next 2 days. We already have an enhanced risk of severe weather out for today over parts of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and Illinois, as well as some of the surrounding areas. We have a slight risk up for parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Tennessee Valley, and then other parts of the Central Plains as well. So we're going to be timing this system out for you guys, showing you when you should be expecting those storms to occur, and really just giving you a good idea of what to expect over the next 48 to 72 hours with this event. So before we get into it, we do have a weather photo or weather photos that were sent in by Sean, who also goes by Penn Weather on the chat board. So he sent in two pictures. This is a before and after. So on the left hand side of the screen, you can see that this is the same tree as on the right hand side of the screen, but this one was taken October 8th. So by October 8th, you're still dealing with maybe a little bit of orange and red mixed in there, but really for the most part it was all green. You're not really dealing with any change of color. By the 22nd, this is exactly 2 weeks in between both of them, both of these pictures. This is October 22nd, which I believe is Friday, so this was taken this Friday. And you can see that we have a lot more orange over this tree, and even some of the surrounding trees not as orange. You're still dealing with some changing in the colors, but they are definitely a lot darker and a lot more vibrant than what we were dealing with on the left hand side of the screen. This was taken from eastern Pennsylvania, and again, there is pretty much exactly 2 weeks in between these two photos. In the top left hand corner of the screen, I searched up the fall foliage report from Pennsylvania, and so I'm assuming this was probably taken somewhere within this box right here. I don't know exactly where in eastern Pennsylvania, but just based on how much color there is, I'm thinking it's probably somewhere in that southeastern quarter of the state right there, where this was taken. And right now most of those spots are either near their best color or their peak, or approaching the peak of the foliage. So this is pretty much right up to par with what much of Pennsylvania is dealing with, except for some of these central and northern counties, which tend to usually have their fall foliage about a week or two earlier than the surrounding areas. If you have any weather photos that you want to send in, send them over to my email address, which is right down here. It's also in the description down below if you want to check it out over there. And you can send in any photos that you personally have taken, especially if you have any fall foliage pictures, if you have any snowstorm pictures, once we get into the winter, of course. So once we get any snow events, it is definitely going to be very cool if some of you guys do send those in, because it'll give us a good idea of what actually fell into those spots. When you send them in, try and just give a general location of where you took that picture from. So I'm not asking for an exact address, but just say like Sean did, eastern Pennsylvania, just a general part of the state, nothing too specific, of course, but just so I can get a general idea of where that was from, so that it could be a little bit easier when I do the analysis in the beginning of the video. So thank you for Sean, who again also goes by Penn Weather on the chat board, for sending that in. And if you guys have any photos, again, you can feel free to send those in as well. So let's get into it, and let's start off with your current National Weather Service page. You can see that we have wind advisories and warnings up for much of the West. That's in the brown and golden colors. We have some winter storm warnings in the pink for some parts of the Sierra Nevadas in California, and I believe even for some parts of westernmost Nevada. Probably around Lake Tahoe, I expect, where we probably have some storm warnings up. Also for central Idaho, we have some winter storm warnings up for those areas. And then we have, I think, some winter storm watches. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure there's one little area of winter storm watches up there in the higher elevations of northeastern Nevada. We have some winter weather advisories in the northernmost Cascades of Washington. And then we have flood watches for northern California and northern Washington, as well as for some parts of Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. Other than that, we don't have many other watches or warnings currently in place. Now, yesterday we had a high temperature of 96 degrees in Rio Grande Village, Texas, with a low temperature of 15 degrees in which was taken 3 miles west-southwest of Gunnison, Colorado. The highest rainfall report was in Princeton, Florida, where they got 4.37 inches of rain, and we did not have any snowfall reports yesterday. So Let's look at the Storm Prediction Center page. We're zoomed in on the central United States right now. The orange color is an enhanced risk, and you can see that is up for some parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Missouri, and Illinois. I'm expecting the biggest storms to probably be in the northern half of that section. So this is where I'm really expecting most of the severe weather to really take place. One of the reasons that's going to happen is because we'll have your low pressure system be somewhere right around here. So in general, we're going to have your low pressure system right here, and then we'll have a warm front, which is going to start off right around here. So to the north of this, you're going to actually have some rather chilly air up into Illinois and Indiana, but to the south of this, in between the cold front and the warm front, so the area that's right in between it right here, this is where it's actually going to be fairly warm, and these areas will actually be able to get some pretty good severe weather. So this zone right in between both of these areas is where I'm expecting most of the severe weather to occur. Once you get north of that warm front, you're really going to go into a much colder area. So you're going into the 40s for midday. The high temperatures will be in the upper 40s, low 50s for some areas of northern Illinois. But if you go down into central Illinois, Missouri, southern Indiana, you're dealing with 70s and 80s for your high temperatures. So really a big difference, and that's going to cause some instability, which is one of the reasons why we will have some of these storms. Now, if we move this on, so this is the last image right here was for today. This is for tomorrow in terms of the severe weather. You can see they put up a slight risk for some parts of West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. They have a marginal risk which covers pretty much anywhere from New York City on south all the way to the southeast. So pretty much the entire eastern seaboard, dealing with some of the marginal risk from the Storm Prediction Center. I'm thinking that you're going to deal with the bulk of your severe weather within that slight risk area, but you're going to have more moderated storms, more diluted storms as you get up into the northeast. So it's not really going to be the ferocity of the storms that'll be the big impact. It will just mainly be the rainfall. Some of these areas in the northeast could be dealing with up to 3 or 4 inches of rain over the next 3 days. So it's not really going to be necessarily how heavy the rain is or the amount of thunder or lightning, but it's going to be more about how much rain you're getting in that shorter amount of time. Whereas in parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Appalachians, you'll actually be dealing with more of a lighter rainfall overall. You'll have heavier pockets of rain, so the intensity might be a little bit heavier, but it's not going to last for nearly as long as it will in the northeast. So we have two completely opposite forecasts in those two areas. Now let's take a look at what the NAM model is showing. So when you look at this map, the green is indicating more of a lighter or steadier rain. The yellow also indicating a steady rain. But once you get into the orange, the red, or even you'll start to see some pink colors pop up, that's where you're dealing with really heavy rainfall. And that's mainly where your thunderstorms are located. So this is by 12 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Central Time. Today, you can see that we have that little line of storms through Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, where you're dealing with some severe weather. Now, you can already tell where that boundary zone is, because if you look up near Chicago, you can see how everything is kind of smoothed out. You have more of the green mixing in with the yellow. You're not really dealing with anything too convective. You're not dealing with anything that's sporadic. But you go down into parts of central Illinois, and you have much more sporadic, much more scattered storms. So that's an indication that to the north we have more of a winter type setup where you have colder temperatures. If you're used to, if you remember, snowstorms where you have a rain-snow line, usually the rain on the southern end of the storm is really not anything with thunderstorms. You're not really dealing with anything too convective in most scenarios. That's kind of like what we're dealing with right here. You're dealing with it's almost like you're in the rainy section of a snowstorm. The rain is going to be a chilly rain. It's not going to be too pleasant. It's going to be cloudy and really a really not too nice day to be outside. You're going to have, again, those colder temperatures mixed in with the rain. You get further south and you might have a little bit more sunshine poking through, but you'll also have more of these stronger storms. So it's a very interesting thing to see that we have such a big temperatures difference within such a small area. Now, if we move this on to about 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central Time today, you can see all that convective action through Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. So you are dealing with some scattered storms by this point. Now, the NAM models bring this a little bit further north than what most models are showing, and actually the most recent run of the NAM does have this a little bit further to the south. You could see a little bit of thunder and lightning up into northern Indiana, maybe northern Illinois, but I'm thinking that the main threat for really convective storms is going to be associated with that line, which by this point is moving basically from St. Louis to Springfield up through northern Illinois. So that's really where that line is going to kind of trace through, and that line is going to be where most of the really strong storms are along. So if we move this on to 12 a.m. on Monday morning, or 11 a.m. Central Time, or 11 p.m. Central Time tonight, you can see that we have some of those storms still moving through Illinois and Missouri. You can really tell where this warm front is and where the cold front is. So the cold front is right here. It's moving north to south. The warm front is moving east to west, and it's somewhat right around here. So this is where you're dealing with that warm zone. So the warm zone is everywhere in between right here, and this is where the convective action could take place. Now, we're going overnight, so the storms will start to die down a little bit. You still do have a convective cluster, which is down through Kentucky and Tennessee, so you still want to pay attention for that. That would be moving due east by that point. If we move this on a little bit more, you can see it does weaken like the rest of the storms, and we're going to continue to see this entire system move to the east. Now, for the Appalachians, you will have some broken up thunderstorms, nothing as convective as what you're dealing with in Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, Arkansas, but you will still have some thunder and lightning, so that's why they did put up that slight risk of severe weather. I'm not expecting it to be anything really too crazy, but those storms would occur on Monday afternoon into Monday evening. Now, if we move this on to Tuesday very early in the morning, it does start to move into the northeast, and what we see is that we have your original low pressure, which is somewhere back up through southern Ontario by this point, and then we have another system which is starting to form down off the shore of the northeast. So this is going to be what's moving up into the parts of coastal New England and the coastal northeast, and this is what's going to be providing the additional rainfall into these spots. So this is really going to be the powerhouse that's driving all that rain into the northeast by this point. You can see that nothing's really that convective, but you do have some pockets of heavier rain, so I'm not expecting anything like tornadoes or hail to be really significant through these areas, but I would expect more in the way of flash flooding over some of these areas, especially areas that are more urban, because you don't have as much area for the rain to run off. If you live in more of an area that's less populated, I guess, and less urban, you have a lot more room for the rain to run off into grass or just into kind of little holes in the ground. But in an area that's completely covered with concrete, you really don't have that. So that's why you see most of the flooding in areas that are in big cities. But once you get out of those big cities, you usually don't see as much big flooding unless you're seeing a really large amount of rain dumped over that same area. So typically it's going to be those areas that are more covered over with concrete that'll have most of the flash flooding. Once you get out of those big cities, I don't think flooding will be as much of an impact, but you might still see puddling on the roads, especially if you have poor drainage over your area. You can see that we have a general area of moderate and lighter rain, so nothing that's crazy, but over time that will start to add up. This is by Tuesday around 9 a.m. Eastern Time, and then if we move this on to 2 p.m. Eastern Time, you can see most of that rain continuing to cover these areas. Now, this is the end of the model run, but this would continue throughout Wednesday morning and maybe even into Wednesday afternoon, depending on where in the northeast you are. So let's take a look at the total rainfall amounts. We're looking at 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 inch in the green, 1/2 inch to 1 inch in the blue, 1 to 2 inches in the yellow, 2 to 3 inches in the red, 3 to 4 inches in the brown, 4 to 6 in the purple, and in the pink color, that's where we have 6 to 10 inches. So you can see we do have some pockets of over 4 inches of rainfall. Now, these are not going to be exactly where those heavy rain pockets actually end up being, but they are a good indicator of generally where the heaviest rain may fall. You do see some heavier rain, especially up through the lower Great Lakes. So even though you might not be dealing with anything too convective, the fact that you're staying under that same area of rainfall for such a long time might add up in those spots. So that's why you could be dealing with quite a bit of accumulating rain in areas like Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa. And then through to the northeast, you have an additional 1 to 4 inches of rain. Localized amounts could be a little bit higher than that, of course. And then if you live in the mid-Atlantic or the Tennessee Valley, mainly dealing with about 1/4 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch. Maybe some isolated spots get up near an inch to 2 inches in those areas. Now, if we move this on to the dew point temperatures, these are definitely going to be high enough, especially in Missouri and southern Illinois, to experience some really strong storms. So you're dealing with 65-degree dew point temperatures as of 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central Time today. So right when the storms are starting to fire up, you have an extremely juiced up atmosphere that's really ready to go and has all the ingredients needed. Now, if we move this on to the temperatures, you can see that these are also going to be high enough. We're looking at a huge temperature difference, but on the southern end of that warm front, we have temperatures that are going to be in the mid and upper 70s. So that's definitely warm enough there. And again, this temperature difference is going to cause some really high instability over this area. You can see that we're going from about 45 in northern Indiana to about 75 in central and southern Indiana. So that's a huge difference right there. And you're only covering maybe 100 miles within there, maybe a few dozen miles in that span. So that's really not a ton of room to be seeing such a huge dramatic difference where you can go from shorts and a short sleeve shirt to maybe even needing a jacket on the other end of the state. So really, really crazy temperature difference. And you can even find it even more extreme areas than that. Southern Iowa to northern Missouri, that's about a 30-degree temperature difference within a relatively short area as well. So you're dealing with some of these spots very close together, but completely opposite temperatures. And again, that will create some additional instability. If we look at the CAPE values, which CAPE, by the way, stands for Convective Available Potential Energy, you can see these values are going to be up near 1 to 2,500. So really dealing with some high amounts of energy that these storms are really going to fuel off of. And all of these ingredients added together will really cause quite a bit of severe weather. I think especially for areas like Missouri, southern Illinois, northern Arkansas are going to be the biggest areas. And then, of course, once you move further east, the storms will die down a little bit, but you'll still have to contend with some amount of thunderstorm activity or severe weather action. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions or comments, leave a comment down below, and I'll be responding within a couple hours. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Now, goodbye.